Everything you need is already inside of you. The world would not be what it is without you. When we begin to create change within us, we begin to create change in the world around us. Your journey to becoming your best self as the whole person starts right now.
Hello and welcome to the Become Your Best podcast and webinar series. I'm Lauren Sweeney, our Vice President here at Rise Up For You and your podcast host. I am excited about our guest today. We are going to be talking about money. Now, don't switch the channel on your podcast app. Stay tuned because we're going to break down money in a fantastically easy, fun, and light way. Our guest today, Carrie Friedberg, is the SF Money Coach. She's been teaching individuals, families, and small business owners like yourself all over the world how to align their spending, saving, and earning with their values, which is so in alignment with what we talk about at the company here in having your values be aligned with your company culture and your personal brand. She's a psychology-informed master financial literacy educator, a certified money coach, and a financial behavior specialist with an extensive background in mindfulness and human potential. She's been featured by US News, Forbes, Oprah, and other media outlets. Carrie has consulted with Visa, Macy's, Google, Kansas State University, and UC Berkeley, just to name a few. Well, Carrie, we are so excited to have you on the show today. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone.
So when people know that you're a money coach, do they get a pit in their stomach? Do they come up to you and ask you all the questions? You know, money can be triggering for certain people.
Yeah, it really is the best cocktail party conversation. People tend to say, oh, I wish I had met you 5 years ago, 10 years ago, or my cousin really needs you. There's this instant emotional response. And yes, I've heard lots of confessions just spontaneously.
So good. So people may be listening in all different places, right? They have no debt and they're saving and they're investing and they have their nest egg and check off the 10 boxes.
Mm-hmm.
Most people probably aren't in that place, or perhaps people are, climbing that getting out of debt ladder, or they're listening and they just took a loan out to start their own business, or perhaps they're doing great and they're really thinking, how do I diversify and invest? All different levels. How do you bottle it all up? Money's kind of a broad topic.
It is really broad. And the first, like Ram Dass says, be here now. The first step is to know where you are, is to take a kind of self-assessment and inventory about which stage of wealth you're in. You just named the kind of 3 stages: survival mode, financial stability, and then wealth and affluence. So if you can be completely present with your financial situation and be intentional about setting goals and keeping yourself on that learning, growing edge, then anything is possible. At the end of the day, this whole process of financial wellness is about having more and more of what you want. And that can be material things and accumulation of any kind, wealth, dollar signs, etc., as well as feelings and experiences. So it's a right and left brain kind of approach, and it's not always about the bank balance.
I love that. So no matter what stage I'm in, does it start with my mindset? Does it start by unpacking limiting beliefs from the past? Where do you begin?
I usually begin with the practical side of things. So again, that assessment and inventory, it's not a test. Like there is no failing. It's more of a self-assessment. So someone needs to be willing to be honest and look at the details of their financial picture. So people on that wide spectrum of survival mode and student loans or tax debts, consumer debt, all the way to the ultra wealthy, it's unbelievably amazing and fascinating for me what comes up in between anyone on that spectrum looking at their money. It's everything from where are all of my accounts? How do I access XYZ? If you're in a financial partnership, do you have complete transparency and access to everything at the tip of your fingers? And so that is step one. Where are you now? And then we get into the practical. So what are your systems? How often are you looking? For people in survival mode, the best antidote and medicine is to start writing down everything that happens to your money. I used to do that by hand, but technology has changed since I was in the client seat with my first money coach. But now, of course, there are apps for that. Everyone has online banking. That's should be immediately accessible on your phone. And so it's what are your routines? So no matter where you are and what stage of wealth, how often are you looking? What is supportive? Not only looking, but managing, making decisions. I mean, the automatic tracking that happens via apps and algorithms is wonderful and amazing. And apps will never be as smart as you. You know what you spent at Amazon. You know that the random store name that it's calling gas was actually clothes. And so there is some tending to the garden that needs to happen. And so again, connecting to someone's goals and what they're trying to address and achieve, I can customize the routines to help them get there.
I love that. Well, I can relate to this because my husband and I, during the pandemic, paid off all of our consumer debt. So all of our credit card debt. And there was a lot, like there was, several zeros after that. And
Congratulations.
thank you. Thank you. So it was really cool to do that together and in partnership. And I think for us, it did start with the mindset. First, we were getting clear. How much do we really have? What does it all look like? But
Right.
then getting clear that it could happen. We just have that target. And we were able to do it about 15, 16 months it took us. But just keep having the target. And we ended up throwing a party when we were done, like the get out of jail party. It was really cool. And so the most important thing, I think, no matter if we're talking about money, we're talking about our health, we're talking about our company culture, no matter what it is, it's where's our target? What is it that we want to achieve? Being clear on that first, and things will come to us. But I know for a while it was like, oh, paying off debt, fuzzy. I'm fuzzy. I can't hear what you're saying. An app, Carrie, I don't want to track anything. I just want to go to Amazon and spend whatever I want. And so that takes some shifting, right? And especially if you're in a partnership or a relationship and you're sharing money, that takes things as well. So do you do couples therapy? I mean,
You know what happened in my career? The moment I got engaged, the phone started ringing with couples. So now I've been married, I think, for 8 years, and I work with lots of couples. There are always interesting dynamics. It's very rare that people have similar relationships to money. Usually there's one spender and one saver. And the art of relationship is to meet each other in the middle. It doesn't necessarily mean cutting and slashing lifestyle, but it's about aligning your values. And I have a whole script of financial partnership questions. Actually, it's a free giveaway on my website under tools. And it is the best way to talk about money. And it's a very wide conversation. You might take an hour or two to go through these, and it's sort of grouped into each stage of relationship. Like, so you're moving in. Have you reviewed XYZ, dividing and conquering around managing the house and paying the bills, and are we going joint, and all of the things. And so and then obviously with two people, there are even more dynamics with their own families of origin. So what do all of those relationships look like? And then of course the changes that any couple go through throughout the duration of their relationship, like the significant events, moving in, planning a wedding, having children or not, investing in graduate school, taking a sabbatical, receiving wealth, inheritance, all of these things. are very common and part of growing up and maturity in some ways. And it's very normal to need help, support, and accountability, and maybe a third opinion about what's happening. And just that's a big part of my job, is education about possibility, and empowering people that they have more choices than they think when we're at home, like on the living room couch, trying to get through this stuff.
Absolutely. And if you wanted Carrie's website as well, if you're listening and can't see us visually, it's sfmoneycoach.com. And that will give you those tools and resources she was just talking about. So let's dive in and let's talk a little bit about vision, perhaps energy around money. Let's talk about where people are at, because a lot of people that are listening are entrepreneurs, or they have a business idea and they really want it to come to fruition. We also have a lot of leaders and executives and CEOs that listen to the podcast. So you have an interesting dynamic of personal finances, and then you have business finances as well.
Yeah, so it really is the same kind of curriculum and methodology. Obviously, with businesses, and depending how large, and I kind of specialize in small businesses, the financial situation is even more complicated, and the numbers are larger, and there are often loans and investors, and all sorts of interesting things for us to dive into. But at the end of the day, any CFO or small business owner, or someone who's in charge of the finances, which is usually the solopreneur when they're first starting out, they're wearing all of the hats. It's once again about, where are you now and where do you want to be? What are your goals and what will it take to get there? So I work with people on doing so. First of all, it's critical to understand how much you need to pay yourself. So especially for small business owners and people starting out, it's one of the biggest things that gets missed. And I think it's one of the reasons that a lot of small businesses fail, is because people aren't clear about their personal finances. In other words, how much does their life cost? How much do they need to pay themselves in order to be comfortable, maintain a cushion, achieve personal savings goals, and have that obviously big piece of their life handled, taken care of, and served? That will inform how much they need to pay themselves, like I said, but also how much they need to be charging. And so you can see, I know you're not new to this concept, how all of that is connected. And so I work with people on rate setting and negotiation, and even contract review and payment policies, which are boundaries with clients and team members, and help people feel really, really peaceful about money. So one of my missions is to help people restore their health and sanity around money, both at work and at home, because health and sleep and relationships are at stake when anyone is stressed about money. So it's sort of like the yoga of money. We do a lot of preventative medicine, a lot of proactive steps, and we do take control of anything and everything that is controllable. And that's part of the education piece. Like a personal example, or on the personal finance side. But let's say that we can make this a business example. Say your office rent landlord doesn't cash your checks, and it's like 6 weeks late, and it throws off your monthly budget and cash flow. And in January, they cashed 3 rent checks, and that's totally unacceptable. You don't have to tolerate that. Here's what you can do about it. Get a cashier's check, require that you use a quick pay app to pay them, send a check directly from your bank so they take the money out and it doesn't matter when they deposit it, et cetera, et cetera. So practical things like that are applicable to business owners of any size.
Absolutely. So I love to talk with people too about, we mentioned the 6 pillars of sort of your happiness or your overall success. Money, of course, being one. You mentioned health. Of course, there's career, there's relationships, there's your romantic life, there's your self-worth, all of those things come into play, and money is a piece of it. And so one thing we like to work on, we are not money coaches, so we're glad to have you on the show, Carrie, but we do talk about it because we're whole people. And exactly, if you're all stressed about that, or you're all stressed about work, or it affects your health, and then you can't actually function. So if we're narrowing down, if we're at the bottom of the funnel and all we can focus on is, oh, my money and the stress of it, if we can come up more towards the top of it and have that perspective. And I love how you said, okay, can I have a sense of peace? What is something that I can relax about? Where do I want my money to go? What do I want to feel about my money? Those things can make such a difference for our overall feeling of sanity and what matters to us.
Yes, exactly. And you're bringing up a good point. So everyone's biggest fear is that there won't be enough money, right? Like that the math isn't working, and that the debt will be too big or continue to grow, or they won't be able to get out of it, and a sort of loss of expectations and control. And so there are specifically 4 solutions to a shortfall, or the fear of shortfall. And this applies to everyone, small business owners, as well as anyone managing their personal finances. The number one solution, the most obvious one, is to increase income. So it's a critical piece of the conversation that's always on the forefront and needs to be top of mind for everyone in the family, all able-bodied adults in the household, in my opinion, and maybe even, teenagers and up, because that's with how expensive life is these days, and depending where you live, if it's a major urban area or somewhere else, 12 and up, the demands from our children get more and more expensive. And so the conversation with them as well about mowing lawns, or any other kind of job, so they can pay for their own cell phone and those types of things. But so that is one of the main things we talk about. And then, of course, the next obvious solution is to reduce expenses. No one likes hearing that. It's not the most fun. But if the math isn't in alignment in a given month or quarter or year, it needs really line by line, category by category review, so that you can adjust. And that doesn't mean eliminate things. It doesn't need to be rough, but it's just being mindful, smart, and savvy about what's happening, and tolerating those uncomfortable feelings about being grossly over budget or under budget in important areas. And then a third solution is our creative solutions to the shortfall. So, and again, that's the education piece, and where I help a lot of people, because I've been coaching people in this holistic approach to money for over a decade, and I have lots of creative ideas. And but the fourth solution, which is a really big one, is communication. So who in your life do you need to be in more clear communication with, whether it's family members or other dependents, and team members, your business partner, your investors, just to be really, really honest, direct, thorough, and comprehensive in the communication. And no is a complete sentence. So it's okay to stop what you've been doing in the past. You need to identify and stop leaks in spending. How do you do that? What does it mean? What will it take? So that's a good sample of, my kind of work with people.
I love that. Well, Carrie, we love to ask kind of a closing question, and that is, what does Rise Up for You mean to you?
So I really hear myself saying over and over again, you have to look out for number one, which is yourself. And it's not about being selfish. It's about taking total responsibility for your life and your finances exactly the way it's going. So letting go of any martyrdom or victim mentality, or waiting and expectation, or unhealthy levels of dependence or resentment. all of that disappears and fades away when you get really, really clear and in a healthy and sustainable relationship with your money. You can really show up in present time with what's happening and then create and manifest the future of your dreams. Really, anything is possible. And but it comes from that foundation of being in reality and telling the truth.
Mm, I love that, Carrie. Fantastic. Well, no matter where you're at with your money, give yourself some compassion. That's where we start. So if you're not where you want to be, that's okay. That's okay. Start with the facts, looking at where we at and then where do I want to go? And if you need some more resources, you can definitely reach out to Carrie on sfmoneycoach.com. Carrie, thank you for being on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Well, not an easy subject to always talk about. However, hopefully you got some ideas. What is your next best step that you want to take with your money or perhaps your business, your relationships, your health, any of the areas that matter to you? Jot it down and start taking action. Well, it's been my pleasure to be your host today of the Rise Up For You podcast. Would you like more confidence? Carrie mentioned setting boundaries, and that's an important one. And it does stem from having more confidence. Check out our website, riseupforyou.com/confidence for our free 6-video confidence kit and workbook. Until the next time, we're rooting for you.